or Reports 101. I'm hopeful that everybody can hear me. If you guys can hear me okay, would one of you mind clicking the raise hand button in the GoToWebinar window there so I can see and make sure? Thank you, Lisa. So hopefully everybody can hear me. Thank you again for being here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being ShipWorks customers. We greatly appreciate your time and giving us the opportunity to spend some time with you and teach you guys a little bit more about reports and templates in the ShipWorks program. My name is Brett Berger. I've been with ShipWorks for about 3.5 years now. Happy to spend some time with you guys, give you a little more better understanding about reports in the ShipWorks program. One request, as you come up with questions, if you would, type them into the questions section here in the GoToWebinar interface as you come up with them, as opposed to kind of waiting until the end. That will give us maybe a handful of questions that we can answer and have ready at the Q&A when that time comes. So as questions arise, please do just kind of type them in as you come up with them, and then we'll do our best to address those at the end of the call. So thank you again, and without further ado, let's kind of jump in here and learn a little bit more about ShipWorks reports and templates. So as you guys are aware, ShipWorks saves and stores tons of data, information in your system. Order information, customer information, information about items, information about shipments, maybe information about order charges like taxes or shipment or insurance, information about payment data, all kinds of information that's handy for you that is in the application that you may want to analyze and report against. And so luckily, ShipWorks provides some really incredibly powerful tools and a flexible templating system for all your reporting needs and capabilities. This is going to allow you to gain insight into your vital information. So we all know what a report is, of course. It's formatted, organized, usable presentation of data and information that we want to see. So you might be asking, well, geez, how do we run reports? How do we get information out of the ShipWorks program? And so before we dig into the how it works or the technology, so to speak, that's happening in the background, I want to kind of quickly give the 2-minute or the 1-minute cheat sheet, so to speak, on how to run and use reports in the ShipWorks program. At the end of the day, it's really very easy to run reports. So here's the kind of the quick explanation or the quick cheat sheet. To begin, you would highlight all the orders that you're interested in. So let's say I want to include those 10 in my report. I can highlight those 10, and at the top here, go to the Output ribbon or tab of buttons. Then I can choose to print or to preview or to save or to email a report. In this case, I'm going to preview. Choose preview, and then you can choose the appropriate report or template in the ShipWorks program. I'm scrolling through the list of all the built-in reports and templates. In this case, I'm just going to choose Invoice Standard. So highlight all the orders you want to include, output, preview, or print, and then choose the report. Once I do that, I'm going to get a preview of the report in question. So here's what the invoice would look like for order number 21111. And if you notice, there's actually 10 reports because it printed one report or one printout for each of the 10 orders that I had highlighted or selected. And if I click through these here, I can see each of those 10. If I wanted to print, of course, I can hit print up here and choose to print it to whatever printer desired. And so that's the quick and easy of how you run a report. Highlight all the stuff that you're interested in or you want to include in the report, choose output, and then do we want to preview it or print it or save it, and then choose the applicable report. Also worth mentioning that you can right-click on your selection and choose to print or to preview or to email, and you can access the reports, the template listing, that way. And I could have done it that way as well. One thing that's kind of important to keep in mind here is that the program always needs a context for your report, meaning you have to select and highlight all of the stuff that you're interested in that should be included in your report so the ShipWorks program knows which ones to be included in the report. So the context in this case would be these 4 highlighted orders or whatever. If I highlight those 4 when I preview my report, I'm only previewing or running the report for those 4 or 5 that I have highlighted. If I highlight all, I'm running the report for all. It's important to mention because actually what you'll often find yourself doing is combining the power of a ShipWorks filter with the template or reporting technology. Meaning, you may have 1,000 orders in your system, but maybe you want to run your report against just the 16 that are not shipped. I can click to my not shipped bucket or filter, highlight all that are not shipped, and then run or preview or print, my report. So maybe I wanted to run a report for all orders that have tax. Well, to find the orders and highlight the orders that have tax of my 1,000 may be an arduous, timely process. So I can make a filter that would show me all the orders that have tax and then run my report against all of those orders or transactions. So again, you're often going to be combining the power of your filter to help you call out or find that grouping of orders so that you can easily select them all and include them in your report. You can also use the advanced search up here, just like you would if it were a filter or similar, to help as well. So let's say that we wished to run our report against, packing slip or invoice report for everything that was not shipped. So maybe I come in the morning and I run my download, it checks for orders, and now I go to my not shipped bucket. I can click on one and then Control-A to highlight all, or simply drag across the grid to highlight all, and then I can run or print my report. So again, you'll often combine the power of the filter, the search, to help you denote the context and tell ShipWorks the context of what orders should and should not be printed. So as we mentioned, reports and templates can be printed, they can be previewed, emailed, or saved. And these are all pretty self-explanatory. Quick Print will simply print right away to the default printer. Choosing Print will allow you to choose a printer and send it to that printer. Preview will allow you to preview that report on screen. Send Now and Compose, Send Now would actually email right away to whatever email address that template is configured to email to by default. And Compose will open up an editor email window, but without sending the email message. Save and Open are very similar. Save will save that template or report. Instead of printing it to the printer, it's going to save it to a file that you can then access later to view or maybe to attach it as an email or for further manipulation. But it can save any of these reports to a file. So any template and report in ShipWorks can be printed, previewed, emailed automatically, or saved to a file, or all of the above if that's your preference. So depending on what you want to do, you will choose the appropriate option here. It's pretty self-explanatory. And so lots and lots of great built-in templates and reports that are already in the ShipWorks program. And I want to kind of take a quick minute to go through some of those reports so that you can get in a better idea of what it is and what we have in the program by default. The first one that you may notice, if I go here and I go preview, is an email shipment notification. And so this one is basically typically used if the ShipWorks program is being set to send out an email to your customer when the order is shipped. This most likely is not a report that you would need to print, but it's important to see that the ShipWorks template system or the reporting system is what controls the output for emailing customers as well. So that's what this particular report looks like. It's a pretty plain example of, hey, your order has shipped. Here's the tracking number. Here's a link to click to track that transaction. If we look at the invoices and packing slips in the ShipWorks program, let's take a look at, for example, the standard invoice. This is a printout that's pretty typical. It's going to contain the information that you would most likely expect to be on a typical invoice type of report. Shows the order number, the date, the requested shipping, where it's shipping from, the ship to, the bill to, item information, quantities, prices, order charges, notes. And in this case, we printed this report for an order that has a shipped label in the program, so I can see the tracking number and the details there. Of course, it's got notes if any notes are attached to the order, and a special message or a thank you message there. So that's kind of what the typical invoice looks like. And if you notice, there are a bunch of different ones built in. They're all pretty similar as far as the information that they contain. It's just the visual that looks a little different. For example, the invoice flowers, it's going to have all the same info, but just a little bit different look and feel. And so when you have time, it may be worthwhile to kind of dig through and preview a bunch of those to see which ones that you like best or that may be best for your needs. If we look at the packing slip report, it's almost identical to invoice or any of the invoices themselves, except that the packing slips don't contain any of the item dollar values. So like the item price, the total, those details are not included on this report, so it wouldn't show any of the dollar values if that's your preference for the, if this is something that's customer facing or whatnot. You may want it to show or not show the dollar amounts in question. So the packing slip looks just like the invoice, except doesn't show the dollar amounts. And of course, there's a bunch of different packing slips, flowers and blue and brushed metal. And again, the data that it contains is very similar. The look and feel is slightly different, may have some, logos and photos and stuff. So one of the other grouping of templates is the labels templates, these four. These four right here specifically are used as quote-unquote a pointer for ShipWorks to control printing shipping labels. So we're not going to really look at those or dig into those. We're going to kind of skip ahead of those. Those four particularly are not ones that you would often customize or adjust or play with in most typical situations. If we keep moving down, we get down to a reports folder. Nice, that's what we're here for, reports. So inside the reports folder, we have a few different groups: exports, financials, product trends, and then a couple reports built in. I'm going to start up here at the exports. Exports are ideally exactly what they sound like. It's a way to export data from the ShipWorks program to typically a file that's saved, like a CSV or a delimited file. So maybe you wanted to export all of the email addresses from the ShipWorks program along with that customer's name and address to a CSV file so that you can do who knows what with a campaign or something like that, or you just need it to get into another system. So if I come up to the top and I choose preview, or we may want to save, and I choose customers, it's going to show me what the customer export looks like. I only had one order highlighted. One was my context, so it's including just one. Now it's a preview, so some of it's getting cut off. We're not able to see all that information here. But had I run that report for all of those, preview, and then choose that customers, it's going to include that data for all 8 because I had all 8 highlighted as my context. Or if I wanted, maybe I want that saved to a file. So I can come up here to Output, choose Save, or Save and Open, which will try to automatically launch and open the file as soon as you save it. I can choose Customers, and then it may ask me, well, geez, where do you want to save the file? I can choose to save it wherever, and then you see it automatically open the file for me. In my computer, on my computer, CSVs are associated with Notepad and not Excel. So it just so happened to open the file with Notepad instead of Excel. But if desired, we can open it with Excel, and it would look very pretty in columns, and all columnar formatted just like we would expect it to. Some of the exports that are also handy, you may find the orders with items is a very handy one, as well as the tracking number. The orders with items is going to include almost all of the information about the order total, customer address information, as well as all of the applicable item details, even if there are multiple line items in the order. So it'll show the item name and description and SKU and code and quantities and all that, regardless of how many orders are included. The tracking number export is usually utilized for getting tracking numbers or shipment information out of the program. And so on this one, it's just basically showing me a CSV or a delimited report. It's got my order number, the status was shipped, I used ground, FedEx ground, and here's the tracking number. And of course, I had the 10 or whatever highlighted, so that was my context. So those were the 10 that were included on this report. Moving along to the financial reports. these are ones that you guys will find are going to be extremely handy for you and very valuable. At least that would be my guess. The order charges breakdown report is going to show you a grouping of all the order charges. An order charge is like, hey, I charged my customer $10 for taxes, or I charged my customer $15 for shipping, or I charged my customer $7 for insurance, or similar. These are things that you are charging to your customer at the point of checkout, and that information does get downloaded into the ShipWorks program. Like, for example, if I look at this order, this one had a $7 shipping charge, but nothing for taxes. So if I highlight all of these transactions that I want to include in my report, and I do preview, and I come down to my order charges breakdown, it's going to include, okay, for those 8 orders, $508.15 was from line items, meaning the items that I sold. $77.50 was from shipping that I charged to my customers. Insurance was not found or charged of those 8 orders, nor was tax. Now, if I went in and ran, so this is breaking it down by any charges that are charged to your customer and giving you a line item or a running total for the orders included. If I go to my Has Tax filter, I happen to know that these 13 orders have tax because I set up my filter to only show me stuff with tax. If I come in and do the order charges breakdown there, then ideally these should contain some taxes. So of those 13 orders, 840 whatever dollars, 42 is shipping and 51 was taxes. So for example, let's say I sell across Amazon and eBay and my web page as an example. And I need to figure out, geez, how much did I charge for the state of California in taxes to my customers for the first quarter of the year? Make a filter that shows you all of the orders that are January 1 through March 31. Highlight all of the, I'm making this up, 700 orders in that filter and run your order charges breakdown. And in about 90 seconds, you can see how much you charged to all your customers in taxes in the first quarter across all 3 separate stores and platforms. So as an example, that's kind of a quick and easy way to get some of that information that may be very painful to get otherwise quickly and easily out of the program because the program already has and saves all of that information. So the order charges breakdown is pretty valuable. The next one in the list is the shipping, I'm going to skip this one for now, but the shipping profit and loss is also another extremely important report. If it's only going to execute or run against orders that have processed shipping labels in the program. So if I highlight all of the orders where I've made labels in ShipWorks and I come into preview and I find my shipping profit and loss report, this report shows you some pretty important information. The order number, the requested shipping, what your user asked for when they checked out or completed their transaction, the date we made the shipping label, the service method that was actually used, the tracking number, here's that order charge, how much I charged my customer for shipping, here's what it cost me to make the label in the ShipWorks program. That FedEx ground label cost me $7.12. And because I charged my customer $8.50, I have a $1.38 spread on this particular order in shipping. So I made a $1.40 or whatever in shipping costs because that's the difference between the two. And of course, I highlighted all 8 orders as my context, so those 8 were included in this report. That's also similar to what some people may say, hey, well, I want an end-of-day report that at the end of the day shows me everything for all the transactions that I've processed. Well, you can make a filter or a bucket that would show you all orders that have processed shipments where the process date is today, and then every day you would run that report against those transactions. Or you can even set up a ShipWorks action to automatically print the report or automatically save it for you or email it or whatever on a schedule. A little bit more of an advanced topic. I'm not going to cover the specifics of how to do that now, but it is worth notating that you can set up ShipWorks. Hey, let's say every night at midnight I wanted to automatically save, email, and print the shipping profit and loss report for all the orders that were processed today. so that a person doesn't have to go and click it and remember to do it every day. It can be scheduled and automated to run. So it's also kind of important to note. The report that I quickly glossed over and skipped over, the shipping costs by carrier. It's similar to the profit and loss report, but it's going to consolidate everything by your shipping provider or carrier. So in this case, I had half of my orders were FedEx and the other half were USPS. So it's going to give you a running total that's broken down by those values there, so that you can see, hey, how much did it cost me to make labels with FedEx versus Indicia versus Stamps.com versus my UPS account, or whatever providers that you may be using. It'll segregate them out that way. And so there's a couple other ones here at the bottom that I think may or may not be valuable to you, but quickly worth mentioning. The order status report is pretty plain. It's simply going to show you the order number, date, the customer's name, and then the local status of that particular transaction in the ShipWorks program. Now the summary report, the order summary, is probably more valuable. It is a consolidated report that's going to show you the majority of the important pertinent details associated with this order and the items and the customer. So it's similar to, let's say, a packing slip or an invoice to a certain extent, but instead of it being one printout or one report per order, this consolidates everything into a single report for all the orders. This one's 2 pages because it's got 8 things, but more may be longer, but of course it's not 1 page per order. It's consolidated, and you can see many of the pertinent details here. Okay, so moving right along. The product trend folder and group of reports. The product trend is a report, and these 3 are all very similar, but I'm going to quickly explain it. The product trend report is a report that's going to consolidate all of the like items together amongst all of those orders. Some people may refer to it as a product trend. Some people may call it a pick list. So let's say I had 100 orders. And among those 100 orders, separate orders for separate customers, there happened to be, I don't know, 17 T-shirts and 8 coffee mugs. And I wanted to tell my guy, without having to look at 100 separate pieces of paper, how many coffee mugs and how many T-shirts. Well, that's exactly what the product trends are going to do for you, is consolidate all the similar items together and show you a running total. So maybe I come in the morning, I download, and I go to my not shipped bucket. I highlight everything, and I print, or in this case preview, and I choose my product trend items by amount. Amongst those highlighted 16 orders, there were 10 of this women's khaki pants, blah, blah, blah. There were 7 of this item. There were 5 of this item. Had I highlighted 100 orders, that would obviously include more stuff. So, based on what you have highlighted, that product trend is going to include more or less items. And of course, I highlighted 150 transactions here, so it's going to have more stuff. It takes a little longer to run. So in the morning, maybe your guy goes to the shelves, pulls everything off the shelves, puts it into a corner of a warehouse before you put all the stuff into the box. This will give him one report that's going to show him how many widgets he needs to pull off the shelf, how many coffee mugs amongst those 100 orders. So it's a consolidated report. It's also called a product trend because maybe you want to see how many widgets did you sell in the month of March across Amazon and eBay and your web page in my example. So you could create a report that would show you all the orders for March 1, create a filter, rather, that would create and only show you the orders from March 1 to March 31, highlight all of the orders in that filter, just your March orders, and then run your product trend report, and you can see, well, geez, in March we sold 34 men's khaki pants, flat front, whatever, whatever. And that's a way to see a product trend of how many items you sold in a specific date range or amongst a specific store. So you can create a filter and help you utilize this report to see the stuff that you want to see specifically. I mentioned there's 3 different product trend reports. The information is all the same, but what changes is how it's sorted. So by amount is going to sort it by the dollar amount, the largest dollar amount at the top. Name is going to do alphabetically by item name, A to Z ascending. And quantity is going to sort it by the total quantity of orders, items rather. So the largest quantity would be would be at the top. So that's kind of the quick explanation of the majority of the built-in reports into the program. And now that we've run some reports, seen how to run reports, seen some of the reports that already exist in the program, I want to take just a little bit of time to do a little bit of a deeper dive on the technology, or how the reports are actually generated and constructed in the program itself. Like we talked about, ShipWorks has an incredibly powerful built-in template system, and that's the backbone of how reports are created, how reports are generated. Templates in ShipWorks are mostly created with common coding and markup languages. Specifically, templates are constructed with HTML, XSLT, and XPath. I'm going to say that again. Templates in ShipWorks are created with common code and markup languages, XSLT, HTML, and maybe a little bit of XPath. Those 2 or 3 things put together will allow you to create and generate professional-looking templates and invoices that can be customized as much as you want. And so making changes with code probably sounds pretty scary. What it means is that these templates, these reports, are infinitely customizable. The sky's the limit, and it can do whatever you'd like to your heart's content because it's done with common code. We don't limit you to just you can change this or this. We actually allow really almost any infinite amount of customization. Our support team, the ShipWorks support team, can help you with simple modifications and customizations. So if you just need to add a field or maybe put your logo on or change some static text or something quick and easy, that is almost always something that our support team would be happy to help you with. But again, for more complex type of requests, it's nice that these are built with common programming and markup languages. This is not some sort of a secret ShipWorks code that only our team knows how to make these reports and generate these reports. To manage or edit templates in the ShipWorks program, it's pretty straightforward. You come into Manage, and then you choose Templates. That's going to open up the template editor window. So here I'm going to quickly talk a little bit about the pieces within this window. Along the left-hand side, you have the listing or the navigation of all the existing templates and folders that are in the program. Of course, you can drag them and drop them and move them around as much as you want or make folders, that sort of thing. In the center, we have a preview of the template that's chosen or highlighted, in this case, brushed metal. Along the right, we have a bunch of buttons that allow us to edit the template, rename it, delete it, create a brand new template or folder, copy an existing template, or move a template. You may want to also notice at the bottom here it says preview using one order in filter orders. Remember, I told you ShipWorks reports and templates always must have a context. Otherwise, it doesn't know which orders should be included in the report. So when we're previewing here, we can actually dictate and specify what the context is. So right now, it's just grabbing the first order from my orders bucket. But if I wanted, I could say, no, only preview with processed shipments. And I want it to show for 5 orders in my preview. So now my preview contains the invoice on screen. There's a page break, as you can see, for different orders, for 5 orders in my specific filter that I specified, so I'm previewing it with that. So that's how you tell ShipWorks what the context is and how many to include in the preview or etc. Now, if we come in here and we click Edit, this is where we see the construction of this particular template as an example. I want to kind of quickly show you some of the pieces here. Preview is exactly like the previous preview. It lets us see and preview the template on screen after making adjustments, and we can also set our context for that report, which orders we want it to view with down here as well. If we go to the Settings tab, this is where you're going to find template-specific settings that aren't controlled by code. So on the General section, you can dictate what kind of template it is, how it should output, what type of code encoding it is. Often, those aren't often touched, but it is something once in a while you'll need to get in there and mess with. The page setup section here is where you can dictate or tell or specify the template's paper or label size, or paper stock, label stock size, so that it can spit out to a specific custom paper type, size, printer, etc. The printing section is where you would choose the default Windows printer driver for this particular printer. You can also choose a tray or a source. So if I were to choose this printer and it had a source I could choose, I could pick a specific tray if desired. The saving section is where saving specific settings are. Like, for example, ShipWorks is going to default to naming this particular one order space and then the order number. It's going to save it to this folder by default. It's going to prompt one time for the file name. So you can specify how and where it will save by default, what the file name is by default, and how it behaves there. The email subsection is where you get to choose and set up settings that are specific for emailing. Like by default, ShipWorks is making this particular template. If I said email, it would send it to the customer's address on file, the billing email address. But maybe I wanted it to blind carbon copy my personal email address on every message. I could type in, here, my email address and the blind carbon copy, save my settings, and then anytime I emailed with this template, it would send to the billing email address as well as blind carbon copy this particular email address here. And then, of course, this is where you can choose the subject line of the email. All of these can include tokenized values so that it will automatically spit out the order number instead of having to hard code an order number every time, or so that it will automatically include the email address or automatically include an item name. Those can be configured to include order details using these token values in ShipWorks. And then, so now we can get to the real meat of it in the code section. The code is where the main guts of the template exists. So this is how a template is constructed. And so, again, all HTML and XSLT. HTML and XSLT is what's constructing, is what this code is made out of. So let's say I wanted to adjust this template and edit this template and play with it. Well, maybe I want to be careful. Maybe I want to edit my standard invoice, but I want to make sure that in case I mess up or make some sort of a silly error or mistake, I can get back to what I originally had. Your best bet is to come in and make an exact copy of that template with this copy button here. If I hit copy and then click OK, I now have an identical copy of my invoice standard. It named it copy. I could name it whatever I wanted. And then I can edit that copy without fear of messing up the original one, because the original one I'll leave untouched and leave intact, and I can just edit the copy. So maybe I wanted to include some custom text down here, a custom thank you message. I can edit my code, find where that's spitting out that thank you, and input that text. And remember, it's HTML. So plain text will just be plain text, but if I wanted to do a line break, I need to put in a tag to do line breaks. So I put 2 line breaks and then thank you so much. This is a custom message. And now if I preview it, there's my text. Thank you so much. This is a custom message. If I wanted that text towards the top, no problem. I can remove it from there and put it near the top. Here's the first bit of text that's spitting out. So now it's at the top. Again, this is done with HTML. So it takes a little bit of know-how, but once you play with it, it becomes a little more comfortable. Maybe I wanted to add a logo to the top here. No problem. An image, SRC tag, and we got to put in the image URL. So maybe I want to include the ShipWorks logo. I can just stick it right there at the top. Maybe I want it to be bigger. I can make the width, 200 pixels or similar. I guess that would be smaller. Maybe I wanted it bigger. So you can do whatever you want with HTML like that. Or maybe I wanted to include the item SKU along with the item code. A little bit more advanced, but we come down and we can find, okay, here I am spitting out the item number. I'm going to make a copy of that row, and I'm going to call it SKU. And then here is where we are spitting out the number. We can make it SKU. And so now my SKU and item code happen to be identical in this case, so it may be a bad example. But now you can see that it includes item code and item SKU with that edit. And if I wanted to view it for more orders, come in here and change my context and see how it looks for multiple orders. And so those are very, very simple, kind of one-dimensional examples, so to speak. But really, these examples are to your, I mean, really, whatever you want to imagine it can do, it can probably do. For example, maybe you want to output a coupon code, but only if the order total is over $200 or if the customer purchased XYZ SKU in that order. Or maybe you want the ship to and the bill to swapped. Or maybe you need a custom logo up here and you need a barcode at the bottom to include the order number. These things can literally be customized infinitely. These ShipWorks templates and reports, there is no limit to how you can customize these things since they are done with code. The best bet, of course, is to make a copy of the template beforehand just in case something goes awry. Because, of course, if you mess up some of the code, it may make that particular template not work. So it's a good idea to make a copy of that template in advance. One other kind of quick tip or hint, for example, another way to get information out of the program is just to do a copy and paste. If I wanted to get all of these details that I'm looking at here to Excel, I can highlight the stuff I'm interested in, right-click, choose Copy, and choose to copy row with headers. Copy row with headers. What that's going to do is it's going to copy all the rows and the header names to my clipboard so I can then paste it into another program. So I could then save it and manipulate it or save it as an Excel or do whatever I wanted with it. And of course, if I customize the columns that are shown so that, this particular column shows 2, now when I copy and paste it, that's going to include the first name column because that's one of my visible columns when I come in and do my copy row with headers. It's going to put the guy's first name in there because I made that a visible column. So lots and lots of great and easy ways to get data out of the program here. And I know we didn't go into too deep of a dive as far as how the code is constructed, but again, if you get online and do some research on the XSLT and the HTML, that'll come up with some great resources on what that code looks like. Another way is simply to make a copy of the template and start playing with it and looking at the code until you get a little bit more comfortable. And of course, another option is to contact our support team for help with making minor changes. But the neat thing about this is that the templates can include and show and do and have or be formatted in really almost any way that's desired. I know that's a lot of info. I know that's a lot to cover. I do want to take a few minutes to open up the floor to questions. And so if there are any questions or anything that I went over too quickly or doesn't make sense or questions about templates or reporting, if you would go ahead and type it into the webinar interface or program there. Any questions that you may have, I'm going to wait just a minute here to see if we get some questions come in, and then I'll do my best to answer those questions here. So if there aren't any questions, or hold on, let's see. Here comes one. Okay, so I have a question from. Let's see if I can see it. We have a question from Steve, and Steve says, Brett, how do you get the arrows in the HTML code that you were typing? They look like triangles on their side. Those are just greater than, less than signs, I'm assuming is what you're talking about. Like in HTML, HTML is a tag-based markup language. So everything in HTML is enclosed in a greater than sign, well, I guess less than and greater than. So for example, a new line is done with a break tag. So on my keyboard, it's whatever, shift, and then the comma button, and then BR, and then shift, and then the period button to do the greater than sign. I'm thinking that's what you're referring to. Lots of good details on that, on the web. So if you kind of get out there and Google search HTML or line breaks or how to do an HTML image, you're going to find lots and lots of great details on that. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, guys, I really appreciate your time today. We hope that this has been a helpful use of your time, and that you've been able to learn a little bit more about reports and templates in the ShipWorks program. Thank you again for being ShipWorks customers. Thank you for your time. We're going to go ahead and end the webinar. If you do have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to hear from you. Thanks again. Hope you guys have a great and wonderful day.